Hello, awakened twin. Welcome to the Elevate Your Soul podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. First question I have for you is, what elevates your soul?
Sense of self, being authentic, not having to worry about fitting into a particular mold, just being free to be me. That's what really connects me with self and truly elevates my soul.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Can you tell me and the listeners a bit about who you are and why you do what you do?
Sure. So I started on my journey of awakening about 3 years ago now. And as most people know on this journey, it's not an easy ride. So you usually start with some sort of pain, trauma, something that almost sends you into the dark night of the soul. And that's what you experience. But that experience is so critical in changing the course of your life, because the way you perceive everything, including yourself, shifts from that moment onwards.
Yeah.
You just stop being so concerned about the external and you start being the most concerned about what's going on within you.
Yeah.
So I went through that awakening process.
I asked what it was that started that.
It was a toxic marriage that I was in,
Okay.
that I was stuck in because of codependency, because of attachment. Being with a narcissist and trying to get out of that connection is so difficult.
Do you find yourself a very empathetic person?
Yes.
Highly
Yes.
sensitive?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very
Exactly.
common. Yeah.
Exactly. And, when you care for someone and being that narcissist personality, when they play a victim, you want to be the nurturer, you want to be the protector, you want to overextend yourself. And
Yeah.
before you know it, your energy is completely depleted and you are no longer yourself. You
Yeah.
have changed into something that you cannot recognize when you look into the mirror.
Your identity is totally like morphed into that other person as well. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, that happened and it sent me into this spiral of awakening. And, the process has been really of self-discovery, just reconnecting with myself, reconnecting with my inner child, forgiving myself for action that I didn't take, for words that I didn't say, for not standing up for myself when I should have.
Right.
Just, that process is so empowering. And along the road, I realized that I can channel through, angels and ascended masters and
Wow. That's a huge awakening. That's a
and
huge awakening. Did you feel that you had that as a child, or is this like the first time it's come to you?
it used to come to me through different ways. Like I would always be fascinated by trees and the elements, and I knew there was some type of magic that Gaia had.
Yeah.
But I didn't really know how to articulate it or kind of touch it,
Yeah.
So after that awakening, it just it was like the floodgates opened, and
Wow.
I would see orbs and I would see the archangels kind of flashing around, and it was just amazing.
Yeah.
And so the first thing that I asked myself is, what am I supposed to do with this?
Right.
What is my purpose? What is my dharma? And so my first go-to was, I want to be of service, because I know I'm not alone on this journey. I know I'm not the only person that went through this. And if I can help one other person feel like they're not alone, I'll have considered myself successful on my, path and my purpose. So that's what kind of started everything.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Wow. Wow. And since seeing these angels, like, can you see people's auras and stuff as well?
I can see auras. I can see kind of shadowy silhouettes of people who've passed on. It's something that I try to intentionally tune into and then tune out, because I want to be able to kind of control how and when I tap into these different dimensions. But usually when it's messages from my guides, from my angels, from, my dragon companion, from my team, it's accessible anytime.
That's so amazing. Wow. I
Yeah,
have a big question for you now.
sure.
Can you tell us what is happening to the overall collective consciousness right now? And if this pandemic has anything to do with that?
It has everything to do with that. I'm a strong believer that there are no coincidences.
Yeah.
Nothing happens randomly. Everything is interconnected. And, within this spiritual community for a while, we've been talking about this event, this mass awakening that's going
Right.
to take place. And like I mentioned, for any sort of awakening to take place, there has to be something that triggers it. Um, One of the things that today's society is so controlled by is fear.
Yeah.
And if you see, this pandemic is tapping directly into that. It's forcing people initially to go into survival mode, where
Yeah.
you're scared about everything. You're scared
And
about
we're already
finance.
scared about our own things too. It's not just social media or the media or the news. Like it's also fear controls our own lives. And then we're bombarded by fear from the news and social media as well. So we're just so controlled by our own fear and external
Yeah.
as well. Yeah,
It's almost like a form of manipulation where
totally.
fear is used to kind of steer you in a different direction, like, all right, be afraid of this, so don't do this. And then you have everybody saying, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to be the one that gets in trouble or gets hurt or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So this pandemic is forcing people to see the conditioning around fear. It's also forcing you to spend time with yourself, which, with the external chaos and the distractions that we have in day-to-day life,
Yeah.
people don't spend time sitting by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You're 9 to 5 running
Or
this.
sitting with their family or their
Mhm.
partners, they spend more time with their colleagues. Yeah.
You're working, you're stuck in traffic, you're watching the news on TV, then you're on social media, kind of just picking up energy from the external all the time,
Yeah.
never tapping in or never kind of staying still enough to realize what's going on within yourself.
Right.
So, the biggest thing that we're getting out of this is isolation. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is, I would say, the most positive thing we're getting out of this, because you're being forced to spend time with yourself, with your family, and reassess what is truly important to you.
Yes. And what about those people who are not using that time valuably and are spending more time on social media and more time reading the news? Like I have people in my life who are like, oh, I don't read the news. I know what it's all about. It's all fear-based. But now they're reading the news like 10 times a day. And I was like, whoa, what happened to you, being anti-news? And now they're like, they feel like they need to. They're like, oh, but I need to know what's going on because, whatever conspiracy or belief that they hold, that they feel like they need to, and it's a necessity. And people are like glued to social media because there's so many people doing like entertainment things as well right now, like, oh, I'll keep you busy, like join my course or watch me do this Instagram live or whatever. So what advice do you have to those people who are just they're so afraid to go inwards and so afraid to stay still? They're like neurotically like more online now than ever.
Well, now you have this time that you don't know what to do with, because you can't distract yourself. You can't just be this busy bee until you go to bed.
Yeah.
So, you're forced to spend time with yourself. And if you're still kind of not understanding how to do that, you will go on social media. You will try to like tap into every possible distraction that you can. What I'm seeing is a lot of people are getting fed up of seeing the same thing on repeat on
Cool.
social media, on TV, on news channels, on the radio. So they're
Yeah.
getting to this point of frustration where they're like, I'm just going to switch this off because it's the same BS, different channel, different medium.
Right.
So in a way, they're kind of being turned off or repelled by the same fear-based messages that they're seeing everywhere.
Yeah.
They are turning more towards like, let me hone my skills in a certain way, or let me do this online course that will teach me something, which is great because they are expressing themselves creatively. So
Yeah.
our sacral chakra is another thing that's being activated right now, because people are, again, stuck at home, but they're
Yeah.
trying to move. They're trying to stay healthy. That's the big thing that's happening right now. So
Yeah.
they're understanding the importance of physical movement, not necessarily exercise, but
Yeah.
expressing yourself through moving your body. Very
Yeah.
different.
Yes, I 100% agree. That's so funny. I literally just posted like 10 minutes ago, post on that too. I was like, so many people are doing exercise and like wanting to get their form right, or they do dance classes and it's like, oh, I need to get the moves right and I need to make sure my posture is correct or I'll get an injury. And it's just like, whatever happened to moving
Free flowing.
super free flow, yeah, intuitively, authentically, organically, to music or not to music, moving with emotions, crying while you're dancing, laughing while you're dancing. Like those are things that you don't do in a gym. And I've realized that too. Like I only work out at the gym and now I'm working out from home. And I'm just like, I don't want to do what I do at the gym at home because like I can just do classes online and do the exact same movements with my body. I'm like, but now it's a chance to move my body differently and create new pathways in my brain as well. If I'm always doing the same thing with my body, I'm not going to create any, like, I'm not going to have any new ideas running through my mind. My mind's going to become more open when I start
Mm-hmm.
moving my body differently. My mind's going to be like, whoa, what? We're moving all these weird ways
Yeah.
that we never used to, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's amazing. That's, a lot of people are starting to tap into that.
Right.
And, that in itself is also this activation that you have. A lot of people are going through or will be going through actually Kundalini awakenings as well. So
Okay.
Kundalini activation and just more so free flowing energy within your body.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've realized as well, like for myself, a lot of changes are happening in friendships and relationships. Like my relationships are definitely changing since the lockdown. I've had a best friend who basically dumped me a year ago. She messaged me at like 1 a.m. this morning because the time zone difference. And she was like, oh my God, I'm sorry. Like, I want to be friends again. And like all these like things are just like changing. Like people are not necessarily going out of our life, but our relationships with those people are changing into a different form. And it's like so many different things are changing. And I do think it's a beautiful thing. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's like we need things to change if we want things to get better. And
Yeah.
as you were saying, like, that's what's happening as a collective consciousness. And can you see why that change right now is so important and where it's going to lead us in the future?
So, just to go back to that relationship aspect,
Yeah.
the dynamic of relationships is shifting.
Okay.
A lot of it is because as an individual, people are shifting. The dynamic that you have with yourself is shifting.
Right.
So you're no longer tolerating disrespect. You're honoring yourself. You're honoring your body. You're understanding what relationships were genuine in your life and you're willing to work towards them again.
Yeah.
So you'll find certain relationships kind of reigniting, old friendships, even with family members, and then certain relationships getting a little more distant,
Yeah.
which is fine because it is a process of observation and allowing.
Yeah.
There's no forcing in this at all. But that is truly what's happening, and it is a very critical time because um, a lot of people have been on this journey for a while. We've been looking at repetitive patterns, toxic patterns, transmuting energy, anchoring in light, letting go of darkness, of density. But there needed to be something that happens at a mass level, at a global level, because Gaia is a part of this ascension process as well. It's not just individuals randomly. And a mass event like this is what enables light workers to anchor in light in different parts of the world that ultimately helps Gaia cleanse.
Okay.
So another thing you'll notice during this time is while the people here are on lockdown and stuck at home and working on themselves, Gaia is flourishing. There's places in the world where, there haven't been dolphins in the water for years and now they're swimming in the waters again.
Yeah.
There's forests that are doing much better.
Yeah.
There's animals that are going into areas that they were almost extinct or chased out of at one point.
Yeah.
So, left alone for a
Skies in
little bit.
China as well. They're clear blue skies and everything.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
there's so much that's happening and everything needs to be rebalanced. So if you look at it from a spiritual higher perspective, it's
Yeah.
almost like a recalibration that's happening for the planet and for the people on the planet.
Right. And for those who don't know, what exactly do you mean when you say Gaia?
Earth, Mother Earth,
Mother Earth.
Pachamama.
Yeah, she's
Um,
having so much fun right now. She's like,
yeah.
giving me a chance to breathe. Thank you very much. Yeah.
He's like, we'll provide, but I need my space as well.
Yeah.
So, it is this period of justice and balance,
Mm,
balance of your inner masculine feminine energies, balance of the internal and external energies, and balance of the planet as a whole.
yeah.
So one of the key themes for this year is balance and purification, which we're seeing right now.
Yes. And moving forward, like what we're learning now, how is that going to change humanity in the future, say in the next decade?
So, an event like this is obviously not going to fix everything. It's not going to
Yeah.
solve everything. We will find, in my opinion, um, two groups almost post this pandemic event. We'll find people who are on a completely different path of awareness. They're much more conscious and intentional in the way they live, the way they react, the way they communicate, the way they treat themselves and others. And then you'll find some people who will still be in that box of fear, still be in that box of conditioned, programmed way of life. And it's a part of duality. I do feel like we will see more and more people shifting from kind of sleep to a state of awakenedness and just awareness.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's a process and it's going to take some time. But
Yeah.
I know that that's where we're headed. So we're headed in the right direction.
Perfect. There's just a big shift happening right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Awesome. Can you explain to us what the difference between 3D, 4D, and 5D is, and if there's anything higher than 5D, like 60 or 70?
There are many, many dimensions. I personally have experienced up to 90. I know people talk about 12D, 15D. Honestly, I think they're infinite dimensions. They cannot be limited by a number.
Yeah.
It can only be limited based on your experience and exposure to them. So
Okay.
the main difference between 3D, 4D, 5D is 3D is a physical state. It's a physical dimension. It's
Yeah.
somewhere that we can see things, touch things, feel things, taste things. That's our 3D. So the
Okay.
reality that you live in right now is the 3D.
Yes. Okay.
When we talk about 4D, it's usually the astral plane. So when you do astral traveling or astral dreaming, you leave the 3D and your soul goes and explores the 4D. It is the dimension where there is light and darkness. There are all types of different spiritual beings or energetic beings that are there. It's very similar to the 3D, except for it's not in a physical form. So many times when you'll have these experiences, you'll see cities or animals very similar to what you have in the 3D, but there'll be something different or funky about them.
Okay.
And that's because it's in a form that is not physical.
Okay.
5D
When
is,
when we're in a dream state, do we ever go into 4D when we're dreaming, or is that something
yes,
different?
we do. We do.
We
So
do.
4D, when we dream, when we dream, we're basically astral traveling.
Okay.
And that happens in the fourth dimension, in the astral dimension.
Okay. Is there any other example of how we experience a 4D
Mhm.
experience in the fourth
Through meditation.
through
So
meditation? Okay.
yes, if you're meditating, you can travel intentionally into the fourth dimension. You can even set the intention to explore the 4D before going to bed. We travel astrally, our soul travels every single night. It's just a matter of whether you remember it consciously or not.
Right.
And
And
so,
meditation, it doesn't have to be like you sitting down cross-legged, does it? Can you
you can
meditate
write
as well, like
down.
surfing or dancing?
You can do
Okay.
walking meditations, you can do
Okay.
dancing meditations, you can do meditations at any given point. It's
Cool.
really a state of mind and how
Okay.
relaxed your energy is.
Okay.
A lot of people can't do cross-legged, sitting straight in this posture, stiff meditation.
Yeah.
It's just too uncomfortable, your mind wanders. And so, sometimes other forms of meditation are actually more effective.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the fourth dimension. The cool thing about the fourth dimension is a lot of your spirit team, like your angels, your guides, your dragon companions, whoever you work with, you can actually ask them to help you explore the astral dimension, and they will accompany you and show you exactly what you need to see. In the astral dimension, you can tap into prior lifetimes. You
Yep.
can see specific traumas that you need to heal. You can get specific messages. So if you want a message or guidance on a specific question, you can ask that before going to bed, and then see where your astral dream takes you, because there's a
Good
message there.
idea. I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the fifth dimension is above that. That is what we usually call the plane of light. That is where you can tap into your ascended masters. You can access the Akashic records. It's just this very peaceful, joyful, full of light energy.
Yeah.
It is above the 5D, above the 4D.
Yeah.
So you usually won't find any type of density there. That is pure light.
Can
So you
people feel or go through a 5D experience in their human experience?
They do. They do. Sometimes, people describe it as, I was just overcome with a wave of love, overcome with, this feeling, this sensation, tingling sensation all over my body. And it was just radiating of pure love. That is you tapping into that dimension,
Wow.
aligning yourself with that dimension.
Wow.
So it's really cool to experience these in this 3D form.
Yeah.
And we have access to these dimensions at any given point. You don't have to be spiritual. You don't have to be a guru or a master or
Mhm.
something. We all have the ability to access these.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. Do you know how to describe the 60, or is that just too far out of our physical experience?
It is so usually above the 5D, you have to go into a deeper state of meditation to
Yeah.
access those dimensions. You'll see them through either your mind's eye, or you'll have visuals that are very vivid. You'll
Okay.
encounter different creatures. I actually met my dragon companion in, I believe it was the 7 or 8 dimension.
Wow.
But it's just a very deep state of meditation.
So, I've never done ayahuasca before, but that just like came into my head. For people who are doing ayahuasca, do they go into like a different dimension, or how do you perceive that when they're, imagining things and getting all these insights? Or I know some experiences are pretty traumatic, but some experiences are
Yeah.
just like, as you said, like this just like beam of light and like feelings of just warmth and love all over. So do you know what
So
happens?
ayahuasca is a very sacred and powerful plant medicine.
Yeah.
And every experience is unique. And
Yeah.
I know many people who've done it. I haven't done it yet myself, and I'm dying to do it. Um,
Same. Yeah.
but everybody that I've spoken to who has encountered this magical plant medicine has said she is just so loving and gentle. She's like a mother. So there's some tough love involved there.
Mhm.
There's not many aspects of yourself that will be hidden. Everything will be reflected directly back to you. So
Right.
that's kind of the uncomfortable part. There is
Right.
physical purging involved. There's emotional purging involved.
Yeah.
Um, you'll be crying, you'll be screaming, you'll be throwing up. Like
Yeah.
there's just a lot of purging that comes out, and that's because it's necessary for you to release. These are
Yes.
things that your physical body is holding on to, your etheric field, your energy body is holding on to.
Right.
And ayahuasca, goddess ayahuasca comes in, she just kind of kicks it all out for you.
Totally.
um, so all of these experiences have ended in this feeling of unconditional love, like just
Right.
being wrapped in this giant hug of unconditional love. And that's what ayahuasca represents.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Um, for people who, as yourself, can see spirits or sense spirits or hear spirits, is that is that like a 4D or a 5D kind of thing? Or where do spirits live? Because lately I've seen spirits when I was a kid growing up, like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 ish. And then it kind of went away when I was a teenager, and it's never come back until the last like 6 months. I'm
Mhm.
starting to like hear the ringing in my ear, and like, yeah, just see things like moving and stuff. So am I tapping into another dimension, or what goes on there?
So most of the spirits are in the 4D because they can manifest in a, I don't want to say physical form, but they can be visible, within our purview of vision. They can disappear, and
Yeah.
they do have the ability to gather enough energy to, for example, move something or turn something on or turn something off.
Yeah.
So they can move back and forth between the 3D and 4D.
Okay.
It's an interesting experience, and it's interesting to be able to see them, and you probably can attest to that.
Yeah.
um, when you are watching them, or if you notice them, it's usually in more so of the 3D dimension, because they're making themselves manifest in your reality.
Yeah.
So it's not
Yeah.
necessarily you tapping into the fourth dimension, it's more so them
I'm
manifesting
tapping
within
into
your
the
reality,
third
because
dimension.
they're there far more times than we actually notice.
Yeah.
So, it's not like they're only there for a couple of minutes or for some time and they disappear.
Okay.
We are actually allowing ourselves to be receptive enough to pick up on that very less, you know?
Right.
Um,
Right. And that was my question as well, is why are they coming back to me? Like, I'm hoping other people who are listening can relate, but like, why are they coming back now? Um,
because your level of receptivity and sensitivity is increasing.
okay.
So, with your level of awareness expanding and you doing things for your own energy to be recharged and replenished,
Yeah,
you'll find yourself tapping into the emotions of the collective,
totally.
picking up on the energy of the collective. You'll know when there's a higher vibe or whether there's a lower, denser energy. So, just your level of receptivity is increasing. And that's why, in a way, they pick up on it and they say, oh, okay, here's someone that can potentially tune in,
Right.
because here, nobody else is noticing, but she's sensitive, so she can probably notice me.
Yeah. Okay. That's so fascinating. Interesting. All right. And just before I hop off, can I ask you about the 9 dimension experience that you had? What was
Oh
that like?
gosh.
And how did that occur? Like, how did you get there? Did something trigger you to that point, or?
I actually went through a full Kundalini Awakening in the 9D, which was crazy because this was one of the meditations that I was doing lying down.
And what is a
Um,
Kundalini Awakening, just for the people listening who aren't sure what that means?
So Kundalini is the energy that you hold at the base of your spine.
Yeah.
It is a very powerful, potent energy used for manifestation. It's also very sensual in nature.
Yes.
Um, so it rises from the base of your spine and goes through all 7 chakras, and that's when you say your Kundalini has risen.
Right.
Um, when your Kundalini is completely risen at the top, you can basically manifest without any sort of time gap. So it's almost like manifesting in real time. You think of something, you put your energy that you have, like almost like full voltage towards that intention, and it just manifests extremely quickly after that. So if something's taking you normally 6 months to manifest, it can happen in a matter of hours or days.
Wow, that's
Um,
beautiful. That's beautiful.
it takes a lot of practice to be able to control, in a way, your Kundalini and how it rises, and then keeping it at that high voltage is also it's an art. It's a
Right.
practice that you need to tune, kind of learn over a period of time.
And that's something I was going to ask as well, because I feel, which I'm sure is completely normal in life, like you feel like you're getting, whether it's in personal development or anything, you feel like you might be getting there, and your baseline emotional state or frequency is getting really high, and then you have phases where it goes back down. How important is that, who you spend time with and who you're in a relationship with, in a partnership with, or who you may be living with in a household? How important is that to your own awakening? Because I don't want to like be that person who points a finger and I'm like, oh well, it's hard for me to keep my frequency high because I'm living with this
Yeah.
person, or I don't want to blame and point the finger, but how important is that for someone who's wanting that awakening?
Um, it's important because ultimately your energy is merging with those that are around you, but
Yeah.
it's not dependent on them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So you ultimately can go through an awakening, you can go through a transformation, you can grow even in the most toxic of situations. Okay. If anything, it's going to help you get out of that toxicity. Okay. So there's a reason why you're awakening at a certain time. There's a reason why you're feeling certain things. There's your personal journey. Yes, it affects those around you, and those around you affect your journey as well, but
Right.
there is no codependency whatsoever.
Okay. Okay. I like that. And how would you describe the difference between what is codependent in that situation and what wouldn't be?
Well, like you said, thinking that being in a toxic situation, your spiritual development is being hindered,
Right.
or you're not able to do certain processes, or you're not as evolved because you're with a certain individual.
Okay.
If it's hindering your awakening or your process, that person will be removed from your reality.
Okay.
And that's kind of how the process of ascension works. That's
Right.
why we find that after a certain point, there's certain relationships that just kind of fade away.
Yeah.
um, there might not be an argument, there might not be words, it just kind of, you don't resonate with each other anymore,
Yeah.
you know
Right.
their energy doesn't work with yours anymore, and so there's no connection. So as you stay on your path and do what you're supposed to do, anything that doesn't resonate in your environment will be kind of just taken away.
Right. Is it some of our responsibility as well? Like for those people who are in a relationship that they're like, I don't feel it anymore, but I'm married or I have a kid with the guy or with the girl. Like, what do you say to those people? Is it
It's
still part of
hard.
their responsibility
It's
to
hard.
cut that cord or change that relationship into something else?
Mhm. It is difficult in those situations, but your responsibility is to be authentic with yourself. So
Yeah.
if you know for a fact that something is not working and it's not doing anything for anybody, you
Right.
need to speak up. You need to get yourself out of it. There is going to be no knight in shining armor coming to save you. You
Yeah.
are your own knight. So,
Yeah.
you need to step it up, and you need to get out of whatever it is that is not resonating with you, that's holding you back in that sense. Because if you find that you're biting your tongue, you're not speaking your truth, you're scared to express yourself, you're not being authentic to yourself.
Right.
And that is your biggest responsibility on your own journey, to be 100% authentic.
Right. And you had that as well in your last marriage.
Yeah.
You felt like you had to walk on eggshells and
Oh yeah.
yeah, you
Big
were
time.
afraid to express yourself because then you'd get like beat up for it or
Well, then you
yeah.
have this cycle of like, you feel guilty because that's programmed into you. Like, you're responsible for causing pain to other people. You could have just kept quiet and gone on with the facade.
Right. Yeah. I totally
You know?
can resonate with that. Yeah. I don't know if I cut you off with your 9D experience. I just like was like, what's Kundalini? And then we went from there.
No, that's really cool. So yeah, as I was saying, the 90 thing was more of a surreal experience for me. It felt like a crazy dream. That's probably the best way to describe
Were
it,
you
because
awake or asleep?
I was like semi awake.
Yeah.
I could feel my Kundalini rising, and it was painful. Like, it was this thick, heavy, snake like energy going up your spine, and you're just like, what is happening? At the same time, it's like you feel guided to stay still, keep your eyes closed, just let it happen. And you're just kind of like frozen, like, all right, there's something crawling up my spine and it feels weird.
Yeah.
um, but at the same time, again, there's like a support that you feel from your guides. Shortly after that, I had this crazier experience with a galactic family. So I kind of woke up on an Arcturian ship, and they took me through what they call the healing chamber of light, and it was the most peaceful, energizing experience I've ever gone through.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
the 9D is kind of, in my definition, this dimension where you access the highest sources and the highest beings that are out there,
Yeah.
instantaneously. So it's really, really cool.
Yeah. And when you get to that, I don't know, like if I don't know the dimensions well enough to know what I've ever tapped into, but I've had
Mhm.
moments where I can just tell my frequency is so blimmin' high. And I use that
Mhm.
time to, I call it intentional dreaming. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to
Yes.
dream. What do I want my future to look like? And I don't know if I'm actually downloading of what my future will actually look like at that point, or if I'm just dreaming and like being hopeful, like, oh, I want it to look this way. And then I like feel as though I'm already living in that future that I'm wanting. And so I kind of call it like a manifestation practice as well. And I just have that huge amount of light. And then from there, I'm like, I want that feeling as often as I can. Like if I can maintain that 24/7, I'm going to have like the best life ever. But as long as I can hold on to that feeling of just complete lightness, like nothing like in a sense nothing matters, like in a sense everything will be okay, like everyone can do their own thing, I'm going to do my own thing, I'll shine light on other people as often as I can, but everything will be okay. So when you tap into these other dimensions, do you like try to pull that back into your 3D
So
life?
when you have that state of awareness that you just talked about, that is perfect because you actually are pulling in from other timelines, as we call them,
Yeah.
and you're pulling in the best of best. It's like your ideal dream situation, energy, everything that you want to experience. And the thing is, it's a potentiality. It's very much a real potentiality to be
Yes.
experienced and lived in this lifetime. So on this journey, we're not here to be tortured, and we're not here to be like going through this really like boot camp situation.
Yeah.
You're here to enjoy it. You're
Yeah.
here to make the most of it. So when you do tap into these different timelines and you have this awareness to almost like intentionally decide what you want to experience, and then feel that energy, remember that energy, and pull it back, you
Yeah.
are really like mastering the art of manifestation there.
And I
And
feel like yeah, sorry, go on.
no, you feel like you've
I feel like I've
mastered.
done that since I was a kid. Like before I could even really remember, my mom had to tell me like, oh, when you were 3 and 4, you said, you'd have this type of family or you married this type of guy. And I forgot about it because I was so young. I was like 4. And then when I was in my late teens, I kind of had those visions again. I was like, oh, I still want, or, oh, I want to like be with this kind of guy. And mom would be like, oh, you said that when you were like 4. So a lot of the visions that I had since I was a kid, like when I talk to I feel like everyone has this. I feel like everyone's like me. So I'm like, oh yeah, like the visions I had of myself now I had when I was like 3, 4, 5. And the visions I have now of myself when I'm 40, I had those exact same visions when I was 4 years old. And people are like, oh, like when I was little, I thought I'd be something. And now I'm like completely different. And like my goals change every year. And I'm like, mine have always been the same. Like my vision of myself being older has always felt the same in my body and always looked pretty much the same. Like living somewhere really warm, the amount of kids I'd have, like I already saw that at such a young age, and it's never changed. So
Wow, that's amazing. At
yeah.
a soul level, like we do, especially when we're younger, it's much easier for us to tap into these different timelines and to
Yeah.
view them.
Yeah.
And also, like, you haven't gone through that much conditioning and programming at that point. So you're
Yeah.
very much connected to yourself at a soul level.
Yeah.
Um, and you're not out to like please other people or prove yourself, or you don't have that pressure imposed on you yet. So
Yeah.
you'll go through that period, like you said, 3, 4, 5 years old, where you just, things. And
Yeah.
then you get into this kind of middle period where there's a lot of expectations and you have to kind of behave in a certain way. You're being judged. There's peer pressure, there's pressure from society,
Or
and all
people
of a
will
sudden,
tell you
yeah,
it'll never happen. Like I don't like telling people what I want my future to be like, because people are like you're crazy, like no one can ever have what you're wanting, right? And I'm like, oh, like, oh, but
but
I
I'm gonna get it.
yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure I've envisioned it when I was 4 years old, so I'm pretty sure it'll happen. Like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and you're being told who to be and what to do and
yeah.
what you can't do.
Or
And then
be
there's
realistic, right? Like be
exactly,
realistic with your goals. Yeah.
yeah. And then you come to a point on this journey where you start getting all of that back because you start reconnecting with your true self again.
Right. Right. Wow. And that you've must have gone through that with yourself when you look back at your childhood, and then compared to like now, do you feel that there's like a reconnection from like some of the things you
Absolutely,
envisioned or felt like as
absolutely.
a kid?
I
Yeah.
always felt as a child that there was something magical out there. Like
Yeah.
there's something beyond what everybody realizes.
Yeah.
And I was told the same thing, like just focus on what's in front of you, just be realistic, like stop talking crazy.
Yeah.
Um, Now at this point, I'm like, see, I told you there was more. Like I
Yeah.
knew there was more.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely, that's happening to so many people in the collective now, and that
So
just
good.
goes to show that you need to trust yourself more and trust your intuition more. Trust the messages that you're getting.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are getting so many messages especially at this time when sensitivity and receptivity are at the peak. But because you've been disconnected for so long, you don't trust it.
Yeah.
So you kind of are like, hey, can you tell me and confirm for me the messages that I'm getting? It's like, well,
Yeah.
wait, you're getting it firsthand.
Right.
Trust yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's so fascinating. Thank you. I love this conversation. It was so
Yeah.
good. Thank you so much for
Awesome.
coming
Thank
online.
you. Of
Great.
course. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. How can people find you on Instagram?
So my handle is Twin Awakened on Instagram. I am also on YouTube, and I also have a group on Facebook.
Cool. And do you offer any services like readings or courses or?
I do, and most of my services can be found on my bio on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Sorry, LinkedIn. On Instagram.
Instagram.
Um, I do one-on-one readings. I do ascension coaching. But most of what it is right now that I'm focused on is understanding your individual soul journey and kind of what your individual blocks are and how we can address them. So all of that
Perfect.
is also on Etsy.
What people are needing right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll put
All right.
I'll put your links in the show notes as well for people to find.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All
Thank you. Bye.
right. Bye.